Okay, day 7. Let's talk about Mortuary. And it's not the one from the 80s with Bill Paxton. This one is the one from 2005 or 2006 that Toby Hooper directed. I think it was one of his, or it was his final film, I believe, that he directed. So this is interesting. Mortuary is about a family moves into this this haunted graveyard, this house that has a haunted graveyard built on it. Um, the mom starts doing embalming, and then it kind of becomes like Reanimator. Basically, all I could say with the plot. This one has a 4.1 on IMDb, and it's funny because I just reviewed The Unborn, which is that 2007, 2008 Universal horror movie that went to theaters that was so terrible. And this one, I don't like this that much either, this movie, but man, this one deserves at least a 5 out of 10. Man, it's lower than The Unborn. That's pretty crazy because The Unborn is so incredibly generic, and this one I think is a little more interesting, even though it's still not that interesting. And if that makes any sense, I know it doesn't sound like it does to you, but to you, the viewer, but it makes sense to me where I think Mortuary is a little more interesting as a concept, but the execution is not that interesting. Is my real explanation. Um, this is also my least favorite Toby Hooper movie I've seen of his. I don't think I've seen every one of his movies. Honestly don't know. I've seen a majority of his stuff. I've seen Eggshells, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, of course, Eaten Alive, Poltergeist, Life Force, this, and I know there's probably a couple more that I'm forgetting, but this is definitely my least favorite out of all of them. Most definitely, this one. It's cool to see Denise Crosby in it. I like seeing her again from Pet Sematary. That's great. It's also got Dan Bird, who was an actor from mostly prominent in the 2000s. I think he was in Mean Girls. I think, or maybe I'm thinking of another movie similar to that. But I think he was in Mean Girls. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. I could be completely wrong. But Dan Bird is in a lot of 2000s stuff, 2000s movies. So it's obvious to see him here. I do really like seeing Denise Crosby again, and I think that even though this movie is really not good, I thought that she was fine. Like, she was fun because she was just kind of being crazy. Like, as the movie goes farther in, I like that. Now the biggest thing for me, and this is a good example of having a lower budget in the 70s versus having a lower budget in the 2000s, where Toby Hooper made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's one of the scariest movies ever. It truly is. And how it looks with the low budget, with the hard work that they did with no budget, making that movie. It looks like a snuff film. It looks like you literally are watching a film where people were literally murdered. And that is terrifying about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he did other movies like Eaten Alive, which I think is similar in aesthetic to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's not as low budget as that. It's still as low budget, but you've got that, and then you've got all of his other bigger studio films, which look more like studio films. But this one is so low budget, but it's the anti-Texas Chainsaw Massacre from '73, where this one is a low budget. Man, it does not work in its favor. The CG is horrible in this. The movie looks ugly. The cinematography looks ugly. And I hate to say that, it's so mean. Because it might have been Daniel Pearl who did this. Maybe I'm blanking. It might not have been him. I thought I might have just thought that it was Daniel Pearl doing this again, like he did the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But the cinematography in this is not good. It looks very just... And it makes sense for a horror movie, but the colors are drained, where like it doesn't look good at all. It's such a dark looking movie, and it kind of really ruins its favor because the 2000s horror movies that were low budget with CGI, with bad CGI and bad cinematography, they really stand out more than, like, say, a movie out of the 70s, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where that, is not, like, made with CG and touch ups and stuff. That's obviously not like this. So it makes the movies in the 2000s look worse by comparison to other movies that were not. In terms of Tobe Hooper's filmography, this just looks so drab and so ugly looking. It just does not look good at all, and it's unfortunate because I didn't like this movie really at all, and like I said, it's my least favorite of his. But man, it really suffered from that as well. Um, the movie also feels like, I know it's got a beginning, middle, and an end, but it's so haphazardly made where, like, I don't understand, like I don't, like, I get the story aspects of this movie, but it was it felt like it was purposely more confusing to me, or maybe I'm just not very smart. But watching this movie, it was like all this stuff keeps happening, but it's kind of quickly done, and it's quickly not established on what stuff is going on throughout the movie. Um, and not to say that Tobe Hooper hasn't done that before. Like I said with Eden Alive, that's a movie where it's basically just a lot of people just doing random shit, and then they get killed by an alligator or a guy who's got a big scythe. But that's just more fun. Eden Alive, that one's so enjoyable. I want to watch that again. I do like Eden Alive. I do need to watch that again. But and it's sad to say, the biggest thing I guess Mortuary gives me is that Tobe Hooper can have some duds too, or he could have some duds too. Of course, he's hasn't been alive for I don't know how long, but it's obviously a dud in my eyes. There might be some people that love this one, and that's awesome, but I just couldn't get into it, man. It wasn't for me. Wasn't my thing. But yeah, now I kind of want to look up the rest of his cinematography or his filmography, the rest of his filmography, and see what he has done, because I feel like I've seen a majority of his stuff. Maybe not. Maybe I haven't even seen half of it, but I feel like I've seen a lot of the big stuff he has done. But yeah, really not good. Mortuary, really not good. CGI, really ugly looking movie. Nothing really special. Not a good use of lower budget. Not for me. Sorry, Tobe Hooper. Rest in peace. But I do love a lot of his other movies, so I'm not. It's everybody's got a dud. Everybody's got their bad days. So this is definitely a bad day for me in terms of his movie. In terms of this movie. So yeah, whatever on Mortuary. That's it for today. Another review tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow.